Reference checks are usually the last step in the job application process, and sometimes people incorrectly believe that once they get to that last stage, it's 100% sure that they are getting the job. While this may be true in some cases, in other cases, you may not get the job if you do not have good references. So by the end of this video, you should know 6 things that you should be doing once a prospective employer asks you to submit your references or ask for a reference check. The very first thing you should be doing, which is quite obvious, is selecting the right references. And so usually you should select someone who can speak to your work ethic, who can speak to your skill set, and who can speak to your experiences. Usually this person should be like a former manager or a supervisor or a former colleague. And that's why, like, when you're in a job, it's good that you're actually building good interpersonal relationships, because these people could potentially be your references. I know sometimes people try to use family or friends. I generally would discourage that, because that's something that sometimes recruiters may frown at. It doesn't really look good if you have all of these good work experiences in your resume, but then again, you have no one who has actually worked with you, who can corroborate those stories that you've told in your resume and your interview, and who can speak to your experiences and your skill set. And if you're a student or you're a recent graduate, this could also be your professors, your internship supervisors, your practicum supervisors, your co-op supervisors, basically anyone that you've experienced during your undergraduate degree or your postgraduate degree who could speak to your skill set. And that's why it's important that when you're a student, you're also connecting appropriately with your professors. It doesn't matter if you work directly with the professor, even if it's a professor where you've just taken your classes. Number two, always ask for permission. It doesn't matter if they've done a reference for you before or if you have a long-standing relationship with them. As far as for each job application, you need their references, you should ask them for permission. While asking for their permission, you should explain why you think that they're a good fit in terms of why you selected them to provide a reference for you. And you should explain to them what the job is about. So you shouldn't just contact someone and say, oh, I'm going to need you to provide a reference for me, without actually giving them some preamble about what the scope of the job is, and, what the expected duties are, and how or what makes you, a perfect fit for the role. So you should be able to let them know why you're selecting them as a reference, the overview of what the job is, what makes you a perfect fit for the role, and also confirm what their preferred contact method is. So is this by phone or is this via email? And also what times they will be most available to respond to the employer. The third thing that you should be doing is providing key information for your references. So this could include the job profile, the job description, the competencies that are required for the job. When I'm contacting people as potential references, I would send them a copy of the job profile or a job description so that they have a good overview of what the job is. And in addition, I will send them a copy of my resume, and I would highlight key experiences that I currently have or that I've had that are in line with what the job wants. And I would also highlight key skills and strengths that I have that are in line with, what the job wants. And this helps because when they are then contacted by the prospective employer, they're actually able to speak directly to your experiences, speak directly to your skill set, and how it fits the role. And of course, if it's a former manager or a former supervisor, it's always good to remind them of all of the key achievements that you've had in the job you had with them, and so they could also highlight it for the prospective employer. The fourth thing that you want to do is when you're sending your references to the prospective employer, make sure that you're presenting your references in a professional manner. So I would usually encourage that this is done in a bullet point format. So in your bullet point, you will of course include their full name and whatever titles that they have, because again, you want the prospective employer to address them correctly when they call them or when they email them. You would also want to include their job title and the company organization that they work for. You would include their contact phone or email, and also their preferred method of contact. And in some cases, if you're comfortable, you could also state what previous relationship that they have to you. So is the person your former manager, your former supervisor? This is something simple, but it's important because it creates a good impression. And at a glance, the hiring manager or the recruiter can actually know who your references is without them having to figure out who the person is or how they should be addressing them. Number 5 is that you should notify your references when they should expect a call or an email from the prospective employer. So one thing that I ask recruiters or hiring manager whenever I get to the reference stage is to explicitly ask them, what time or what date range that I should expect that they will call my references, because I would love to communicate that information back to my references to ensure that they're available during that time frame. So you could simply ask the recruiter this information either via email or simply just calling them and letting them know that you would want to know what potential times or days, just because you want to make sure your reference is available at that time. And number six, which is quite simple, is after the reference check, send a thank you note or a thank you email to your references. This just shows appreciation for their time and for their effort. It also means that, when next you ask them to be your reference, they would happily take that on, because again, appreciation opens more doors. And you want to keep them up to date on the job search. So if you get the job or you did not get the job or whatever happens, you want to update them on, the final outcome of that job application process. Since they were part of the process, they deserve to know. And if you're someone who's curious about the other stages in the job application process in terms of how to craft your resumes, cover letters, answer screening questions, answer questions in interview, make sure you go watch this playlist where I break it down in each video. Of course, remember to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.